O'Connell. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. We haven't had much one-to-one conversation, have we?
No.
Even though we've been working together on a different story over the last several months. And I, for one, am a big fan of your writing. I absolutely love your writing. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really delighted to have this private time with you. This
Me too.
conversation just for the two of us. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Ria. Valuable.
So would you like to just tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure.
Not just a writer, are you?
Right. My name, of course, is, I call myself Renu for short, for Renuka, Sanskrit name. I'm really foremost a painter, an artist, and I've been doing that for years. And I just picked up this writing practice a couple of years ago. And actually, I was going through my notes. 2009 came up, and I saw, oh, write poetry, write, paint, and put it away and never thought about it. And then I wrote a bit to some paintings when I had a show. And a friend of mine said, you might be interested in method writing. And I thought, oh, no, I can't do that. Especially because in my life, really, I wrote nice birthday cards, good letters, few good essays in school, but basically I wasn't hitched into writing. Now I am in a big way.
Yeah. So something said to you, do the method writing then.
Absolutely. Well, I have to admit, my friend was taking it and she inspired me quite a bit. And I felt as if she saw some value in what I had written. And she also saw I could use some help. So it was a win-win situation there.
Oh, so that, what would that be in about 2 years ago?
Yeah, about 2 years ago. And I've taken everything Jules has had since then,
Yeah.
which led to this book. I took the refresher course in the summer. And wow, Jacqueline one day said, you know, we've been doing pretty well. We ought to write a book. And I was like, ooh, that's exciting. Is it a dream? The dreams come true.
Yeah. And you were, from what I could see, you were up for it right from the beginning.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it, but I will say that I turned over the writings that went directly to the prompts that we got, the lessons we were
Yeah.
given. I didn't change them, you know, for the book, because I thought it was important to be honest. Well, this was my reaction. I'm not saying I know what anybody else did. That's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was kind of rough when we really got going on the book. I was like, oh my God, it's in there. I need to detach myself immediately. And that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So that was, you felt for a moment, you felt like you didn't want to be part of it anymore. Is that what you're saying?
I was a little afraid, you know, that I was in the midst of very good players. And I was like, boy, you know, should I play with them? And my fellow writers made it easy for me. So
Yeah.
I decided to get over myself
Oh,
and
lovely.
you know, get back on the team, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I'm so pleased that you did, because that really speaks to the fact that a person, often we can't tell how good our own writing is because you're so up there with every single other person that's in that book in terms of quality of writing.
I think that's always the shocking thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
that people understand what I've written, and B, and B, that they think it's, a relevant voice. And so I'm always like, oh my God, this is happening. Um, and because you're right, you can't judge your own work.
Mm.
It's very interesting.
Mm.
Mhm.
So one of the things that really intrigues me is that, because you're an artist as well as a writer, and I would like to ask about how the writing and the artistry is similar or different. But what just occurred to me as you were saying that, do you have the same feelings about your artwork as you do about your writing? Is this a creative thing, or is it just a writing thing?
I think it's just a writing thing,
Mm-hmm.
because my eyes and hands are very comfortable with my craft that
Mm-hmm.
I've practiced for decades.
Yeah.
It's like riding a bike, I just jump on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is all new, but that's why it's so exciting.
Mm.
Every every class is like, oh, I could do this, I can research that. I can. Oh, it's fascinating because art can take you places, very, very amazing, deep places.
Mm-hmm.
The writing kind of shows up and tells you how you're living and who you are, and you
Mm-hmm.
see it on the page. The thing about art is, I spend a lot of time in relationships, looking at how things go together, fit together, shapes and whatnot. And writing is very similar. You craft the words into a piece. Well, a lot of times I would do a painting and I would say, this is wonderful, but I would like my viewers to know a little bit more. And so that's where the writing helps, I feel.
Right.
Yeah. Um, Even though Thomas Wolfe back in the day said, anybody that has to write to their with their artwork is copping out.
Do you believe him?
I do not believe that man
Good.
at all. No,
Each person has their own opinions.
that is correct.
Oh. So would you talk a little bit then about your writing process? How does it work for you?
Sure. I get up very early in the morning because it's a precious time.
Mhm.
And I might meditate or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I sit down with nothing on my mind. And when I start to see some words like I hope or I will, I mind those words a bit until I see something showing up. And I never know what it's going to be. I just go sentence by sentence. Where is this going?
Mm.
That's why it's always such a surprise. And so that's one part of the process. The other part is that, well, we all have to read and research, which I love because I do that for my artwork. I'm always
Mhm.
researching. And so, for example, I took a class in character development,
Mhm.
and we learned to maybe go to the farmer's market, notice how people dress and their quirkiness. So it fits very well with art, noticing things all the time.
Mhm.
So that's really fun. And then when I would get stuck about the character, I would walk the halls of this place where I have my studio. And then I'd ask myself, well, what would the character do? What would they say? What would they be like? So that's part of the process as well. And a funny thing, too, water. Water means so much to me, and I use that as my grace. Because women were the keepers of the rivers and the waters, Native American women especially,
Mhm.
um, for trade and growing rice and whatnot. So I feel that a lot of my work comes from that well, so to speak.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. It's like it's got two different meanings to me. It's like being around water and looking after water, but when you talk about well, it felt like something that comes up from within us, and they it felt very feminine but very powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think when we identify very strongly with someone or something, we really do meld into it. Especially if it's, I consider it spiritual,
Mhm.
water, the meaning of it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So tell me about how being an artist affects you being a writer.
Mm. Um, well, I have to. I feel that I have to be very clear in my communications.
Mhm.
Um, so I think about writing and I think, well, will the person understand this painting? Will they understand why this is here? And sometimes I say, it doesn't matter, it's surreal.
Mhm.
This is, wild stuff. And um, but other times it begs for clarity and especially titling paintings. Oh Lord, I'll almost finish a painting and I'll have trouble finishing it. And the reason is because I'm not too sure what it is, what it's about.
All right.
So I will walk away and then I might actually go to the painting and ask, who are you? um, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to read something I wrote about how I do all these things.
Yeah,
Okay.
please do.
Okay. So this is kind of about how I process and how the writing and the art fit together for me. Um, I walked towards the door of my bedroom, and the words, "I've collided with an eclipse," came to mind. So I jotted it down and left it on my desk. A couple of days later, I took it and wrote a poem. This poem led to another one called Thunderbird Kissed the Sun. It tells the story of the painting I just completed. From nothing came everything, and it complemented one another. And I find this really enthralling. And then I even looked at the painting and I said, if you match this poem I just wrote, are you correct? Is it right? And it gave me one tip. It said you have to lighten up the bottom of the painting to expand it more to go with the poem. So things are happening now in my studio that never happened before. I'll have four projects going. Like this is funny, like Santa's workshop. I have all these things going at once, and I walk in there and I don't think about what I'm going to do. Like, oh, I need to finish this today. I just walk up to a table and I notice something that needs to be done and I focus on it. And then it leads me to the next table and the next. And it's all working together. And what comes out is like, it's nothing that I anticipated. It's kind of like put my hands up and reach and there it is. And it's a lot like writings like
Yeah.
that. You don't know.
So it sounded like I was really intrigued because I was thinking that the painting and that side of the what you do impacts in the writing, but it sounds like the writing has now impacted the art, the painting,
They're both, I think it's said that they're both sides of the brain, but
right?
somehow they're working together right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
hand in hand. They're working together, and there have been times when I've been in the writing class and it's so intense. I think, oh my God, how can I do my artwork because I'm
Mm.
just so embroiled. But you'll do what you love
Mm.
no matter what. So I keep
So
going.
so are you saying that you love the writing then? Is that why you keep on doing it?
Mhm. I
Yeah,
love I love the writing.
yeah. Now a lot of people really find the writing hard. What would you say anything about that?
Mm. I do find it hard
Right.
because we're really talking about the story of our life and the truth of who we are.
Mhm.
And one has to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And for me, that is really difficult to
Mhm.
be honest, um, and yet learn as I go at the same time.
Mhm.
I find that, it's about life more than anything.
Mm.
And I think I've crafted my life so that it complements my writing and my painting. So all the things I do for this purpose.
Mhm.
I just keep that in mind. Some
Mm.
people say I write like an artist. I and it is funny. It's the only way I kind of know how to write is I write as I see, in a
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
um, and so people always say that. I think it's interesting. Again, we don't see ourselves,
Mhm.
but I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. The other thing that you were saying, which I'd like to ask you about, is the you talked about writing and being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So that kind of suggests that there's something going on the page that maybe could feel a little bit scary. And the question that kind of came to my mind was, well, why? Why do we have to be vulnerable on the page?
Mm, mm. Well, there's there's more. We spend a lot of time on that page. Whereas I wouldn't walk up to some acquaintance, and start talking about, these deep-seated things, in 15 minutes. But
Mhm.
perhaps if I was given an hour, you know, I'd have more to say. But you're touching on something that I love, which is as soon as we can stop being afraid of our experiences as a human being,
Mm.
the more free we'll be. And Jules has emphasized that so many times that no one is unique in the sense that, oh, they've had an experience that's just so special and horrendous and nobody else has. I mean, everybody says, oh, yeah, yeah, I've done that. And nobody really cares. Your wound is not so precious. So just get on with it, but I write what comes out. I don't have stories. I don't sit down and say, oh boy, I've got to tell this one.
Yeah.
They'll be knocked out about this one. So I guess that's the vulnerability. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, who's going to show up today? Or will anybody show up
Will anybody show
to
up?
the party? The incredible thing is somebody always shows up.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. It is, and it's linked to that sitting down to write with nothing on your mind, though, isn't it? It's
Ab-
linked to not knowing in advance what you're going to write about, to allow
Absolutely.
something else to show up.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that.
I think a lot of people who sit down to write, and a lot of people feel compelled to write something like a memoir or, you know, about their story, and then get scared to put the pen to paper. But I think what you're alluding to is like, we're not writing about our experience, we're writing from the
Yes,
experience.
that is, wow. That's precious the way you
Mm.
said that. That is really, and I think that's why the book is so special.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel into that book
Mm.
very deeply.
Yeah,
And that's what people are saying when they read it.
yeah.
Yeah.
How many times have you read it already, the book?
Hundred, no, no. Uh, I haven't read it that much, and
Right.
but I will say that when we read out loud for our book launch follow up,
Mm-hmm.
every one of those pieces for me took on a new life when they were read out loud. I
Yeah,
I felt like I was in Chartres Cathedral. I mean, I was shocked at how beautiful each one of them was, and I
yeah.
that experience, it has enlivened me and my writing as well.
Mm.
I mean, I after that book launch, I wanted to sit down and start writing because I saw possibilities. People
Mm-hmm.
showed these great possibilities, and
That's really gorgeous.
really wonderful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know what you mean about the readings in the follow-up, because I've read the book a lot of times already, because I just love it. Every single piece I just think is amazing in there. And I love my own pieces in there as well, which is pretty
Yes,
stunning, really. Um, but yeah, and I was really familiar with every single piece because I've read them so often, because also involved in all the editing and all the formatting and everything else. But then hearing people read the pieces, I really know what you're saying there. It just kind of elevated it to a whole different level, didn't it?
surely it did.
Mm,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Hmm.
So do you think the experience of publishing the book, then being involved in this, has made a difference to you?
Absolutely. Um, for one thing, I'm in awe and praise of people who edit and people who are publishers like yourself. Because um, literally there were about 40 points that we had to consider right off the bat, the first meeting, that were overwhelming. And you and Jacqueline were like, check, check, yeah, we can do that, we can do that. And then when things came up that were very technical, very hard, you guys were up for the challenge. You were like, oh yeah, I'll check that out, I'll try that. So for me, you can imagine that liberated my time. I just can't even do things like that
Mm.
at all. so you made the experience happen for all of us, and
Mhm.
everybody did something, and
Yes.
you always said do whatever you want to do, never do anything you don't want to do,
Mm.
and that was very liberating. And um, so then it was fun too because we met every week and laughed and and then various people were editors, and I learned so much about editing. And so I'll say that was something valuable about
Mhm.
doing this book. And then having read everyone in the book so many times, that helps. And it points the way. We need
Mhm.
to read a lot and
Mm.
write a lot.
Mm.
We all know that. I've done hundreds and hundreds of paintings, and oh, don't like. And We can do that with writing too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about writing as well, it's like you don't have to, everything you write doesn't have to be published, does it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Nothing is so cast in stone like that.
Mm,
Yeah, it's very fluid.
mm.
But I have to say, your pieces in that book, I felt like you were the spokeswoman for me. They were the pieces that I wish I had wrote. And you beat me to it.
We always say that about other people's writing, though, Renu.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I often think I wish people could hear, when they read their pieces, especially reading out in class. I often think I wish they could hear their writing how I heard it, and I know that works the other way too. I mean, in the very last session of the previous class that we've not long finished, and we're due to start again very soon. Like I was the last person to go in the class of 12 after hearing so many brilliant pieces and feeling completely inadequate with the piece that I'd brought to class. And then the response that I got, and we've both seen it over and over again. People come in thinking they've got a piece that is, kind of mediocre, pretty bad. Maybe it's a little bit good, but it's not great. And then you listen to all of these people read these fantastic pieces and feel even more inadequate, and then you read and you get the same response that everybody else has got to their pieces. And I think I don't know why we don't see with the same eyes. But it's also, for me, it's like I don't worry about that anymore. I don't worry about the fact that I can't see my writing in the way that other people can see it. I'll just keep working at it. I'll just keep working at it. I'll do the editing. I'll read it, and I just do my best to make it better every time.
Yeah, that's where we're compelled. If something doesn't sound the way you want it to sound, it doesn't feel the right way, the only answer is make it better. Or you're unhappy.
Renu, if there's anybody who might listen to this who is fairly new to writing or wants to publish a book but hasn't done, is a bit scared maybe, what would you say to them? What kind of tip would you give them now that you're a published author? What advice would you give?
Well, I would say get started. Start moving that pen on the page,
Mm-hmm.
and show up for yourself every day. And just, without judgment, with pleasure, show up and see what happens. And honestly, I think one of the best books out there is A Different Story in terms of learning, because you've got the piece, you've got the lesson. It's all there for you if you have the desire.
Mm.
I don't. I would say again, and I'm talking to myself. Stop being afraid of your experiences or afraid that you're inadequate,
Mm.
because there is something that you are supposed to write. I'm supposed to write. And if I don't, somebody else is going to grab it. And growing up in a family of 5 boys,
Mm.
I've learned grab it.
I bet I'm the oldest of 6, so 2 boys
Oh,
and 4 girls, and you kind of have to grab everything you can if you want to get anything. So I just want to pick up on one thing that you said in there. You said show up for yourself. What do you mean by that?
um, What I mean is that everyone has a beautiful, unique voice, and we want to hear that voice. We want to hear a symphony and how the altos and the sopranos all support one another. Or it's like a quilt, with threads. We want to see all the colors woven together. And if someone denies themselves that, they deny the rest of us that.
Oh,
So we don't want that to happen.
no. Wow, I love that. So it's not, when people are stopping themselves from writing, it's not only themselves that they're denying. And the way that I heard it was like, it's almost like denying their whole self, but also denying other people the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that that's the case. And so I would say, like in painting, we always say, just put a little color on the page, get rid of that white. Put a few words on that page. When I don't know what to write, like in other words, should I write my journal or practice a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have time, for example, I have a little notebook and it's really small, and whatever two words come to mind, I just write them down,
Mm-hmm.
and before you know it, you have 8 lines
Mm.
that fit together pretty nicely, because you edit as you write, because you don't have all the space or time in the world. So I guess I would say to those people, maybe that would be a fun practice.
Wow, I love that. Not heard that one before. Just 2 words at a time in a small notebook.
Yeah, you start with a couple words, and
Mm.
I find it's very interesting when you start with a couple words, you'll pull out interesting words
Mhm.
for some reason, and grace, I don't know. And then once you get the two words down, they're calling for more.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you've got your 8 lines on there, and then you can keep going. So I think that would be a fun practice.
I'm gonna have a play with that. I love that. It is because, you don't always have time to sit down and write every day. I mean, I pretty much do most days, but there are some days when I don't have much time, and that would be a really fun thing to do. You could do it anywhere, couldn't you? Like, just have a
Absolutely.
little notebook with you, like in the supermarket queue, or I don't know, anywhere.
It's interesting. I brought it in the car,
Mhm.
and um, the things I saw out the window,
Yeah.
oh my God, I could have filled up the notebook with curious, quirky things that I saw.
Uh-huh.
So that's fun too. It's
Wow.
almost like a movie, let's get a scene here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, fabulous.
Mhm.
Is there anything we haven't talked about that you think, I'd like us to talk about this to do with the writing?
Um, let's see. Well, um, when we learn method writing, it's I want to be clear that it's not a surfacey technique thing, like,
Mhm.
oh, if you learn dreaded association or you learn surrealism, then you know you've packed your bag and you're ready to go with the tools. It's more like you're given um, several possibilities on how to say something. And a reader can get easily bored if the voice doesn't change up quite a bit.
Mhm.
And so, what's really interesting when I read things, I know a lot of these people did not take method writing, and yet I'll see what we're learning. They'll throw in some crazy words, or
Yes.
or they'll break up a sentence in a funny way.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to say that that's the exciting part about writing, is learning that there are ways of telling your story
Mm.
other than linear. 1952, I was born, I went to school, I blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I love that because I read the a Charles Dickens book a while back. I think it might have been The Old Curiosity Shop.
Mm.
And there was a page in it, which is what we would call an image moment from the method writing. Now, in Charles Dickens' time, like Jack Grapes isn't that old. Method writing didn't, or the Jack Grapes method writing didn't exist in those days, and yet this image moment was just fabulous in a Charles Dickens, and so much so that I think I read the page at least 3 times before I turned over the page. And I think that's the thing that the method writing brings to our writing. Like it helps us to find a way to be able to write our story without writing our story, but make it so much more interesting for the reader.
Yes, yes. And
Mm.
that I am so grateful for, so grateful for. Because if you sit down with that thought, I am going to write about freedom, and you don't have anything but that, oh my God, I can see myself being so locked in my mind that
Yeah.
would not be interesting or exciting.
Mm. Yeah, that is definitely something about the method writing. It unlocks something within
Yes.
us. It kind of it's like the difference between I've been reading a book about writing, and this was an example in it, so it's what's come to mind. But when you first go back to school after the summer holidays, and it says tell you what you did in the write about what you did in the summer holiday. So all you can think of is the things that you did in the
Uh,
summer holiday, and it's almost like just a list of all the things that you write, whereas with the method writing you wouldn't write it in that way. It would free something else up, to because you wouldn't be focusing on the things that you did in the summer holiday. You'd be focusing on how you're writing about the things that you did, which takes the story in a different direction.
well, that does remind me about how we loosen things up, and we get this freedom. Um, so, for example, we learn to write from different parts of our body, maybe
Mhm.
maybe the hands, maybe our heart. Um, and so, when you're writing from the body, talk about originality showing up.
Mhm.
You say, "I this isn't me. You know, this came from outside the window."
It definitely feels like it's come from somewhere else, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's, I think, what you're talking about. That
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also, though, you don't have to know method writing for that to be the case, because you hear of lots of different authors. I know Julia Cameron, she talks about it as if it's taking dictation. A lot of authors who clearly are not method writing, when you look, because you can kind of tell if somebody's done some method writing. Um, they're not method writers, but they're people who trust in that, I think. Um,
Yes,
so they've somehow got the freedom that method writing has given us.
absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I share in that whole notion, definitely.
yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Renu, that has been absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I
Thank you
love
so
every minute.
much. So
You are an inspiration to me, as not only a writer, but now a publisher. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.